Now, Paul Krugman is an unabashed Hillary Clinton supporter, right? Now, he's been out there. He's defended her for years. For example, in 2008, he wrote articles against the Obama boys, right? Saying that, hey, man, those Obama supporters, they're turning into a cult of personality. Oh, boy. And, of course, most recently, in this election cycle, going against Bernie Sanders supporters, basically saying, oh, they're sexist, they're Bernie bros, they're all white males, they're straight white men, they're bros, right? They're the Bernie bros that are attacking Hillary Clinton because they hate women, right? That's Paul Krugman reporting in the New York Times. So look, we know where Paul Krugman stands. That's fine. Okay, I don't agree with him, but guy's allowed to have an opinion, right? He's allowed to support and defend a candidate. Okay. Now, he's going to do so in a recent New York Times op-ed where he decided to defend the Clinton Foundation against some of the questions surrounding the funding and surrounding access. Now, I'm going to read some of that article to you and then kind of break it down. Now, he writes, we have the presumption that anything Hillary Clinton does must be corrupt, most spectacularly illustrated by the increasingly bizarre coverage of the Clinton Foundation. When Bill Clinton left office, he was a popular, globally respected figure. Well, that's true, and he's still fairly popular today. Maybe not as much as he was before, but still, nonetheless, a popular figure. Now, Krugman writes, what should he have done with that reputation? Raising large sums for a charity that saves the lives of poor children sounds like a pretty reasonable, virtuous course of action. Virtuous. Yes, he used that word. And the Clinton Foundation, he writes, is by all accounts a big force for good in the world. For example, Charity Watch, an independent watchdog, gives it an A rating, better than the American Red Cross. Oh, so they're even better than the Red Cross. Okay, look. To be fair, I'm not going to pretend the Clinton Foundation is entirely evil. Or evil, right? It's done some good things, right? They've done some good things, but as I've reported before, there are, large donors that have given money to the foundation and in some cases have received access to Hillary Clinton while she was at the State Department. Now, it didn't always happen. Access isn't always 100% guaranteed, but there certainly seems to be a greater chance of a large donor getting access to someone through the State Department, whether it be a meeting or some sort of favor, than you and I would, right? By giving to the foundation. Now, one example that I want to give you is a man named Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, who is the crown prince of Bahrain. So this guy, and this is explained by the Washington Post, right? In 2009, Doug Band, longtime Clinton aide and co-founder of the Clinton Foundation, emailed Huma Abedin, another really large Clinton aide, right, and working on her campaign. He emailed her that the prince would be in Washington for 2 days and was seeking a meeting with Hillary Clinton. Now, Band added that Salman was, quote, a good friend of ours. Such a good friend, the Crown Prince of Bahrain. Which, by the way, Bahrain has a pretty abysmal human rights record. Just saying. Now, Abedin responded that the prince had already requested a meeting through normal channels. Okay, which is, look, if you want to request a meeting, that's what you do. You go through the normal channels. You say, yeah, I would like a meeting with the head of the State Department. Instead, this guy requests it through normal channels and then says, oh, by the way, I've also donated to the Clinton campaign, or not the campaign, sorry, the Clinton Foundation. And, I'm going to call in a little bit of a favor. I'd like to meet with Hillary Clinton. And, of course, since he's such a good friend of theirs, he kind of got that meeting. Now, let me go back to the Washington Post first. Now, Clinton had actually been hesitant to commit through those normal channels. But 2 days later, Abedin followed up with Band to let him know that a meeting with the prince had been set. She writes, if you see him, let him know. We have reached out through official channels. Now, that's a case of a donor to the Clinton Foundation getting access to Hillary Clinton at the State Department, going through normal channels and then going through the donor channels of the Clinton Foundation, and then eventually getting his meeting. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. Not everyone who donated and requested a meeting got a meeting. But as I said before, it's about having a greater chance at access by giving that money. And there are certain world leaders who want to rehabilitate their image and get certain, influence at someone who's in a very powerful position, such as the State Department. So that's the problem with that. There's the conflict of interest there. Now, Paul Krugman, doesn't seem to get that, right? Now, in his article, he writes, quote, any operation that raises and spends billions of dollars creates a potential for conflicts of interest. You could imagine the Clintons using the foundation as a slush fund to reward their friends, or alternatively, Mrs. Clinton using her positions in public office to reward donors. Now, he also adds that it was right and appropriate to investigate the foundation's operations to see if there were any improper quid pro quos. As reporters like to say, the sheer size of the foundation, quote, raises questions. Oh, no kidding. But of course. And you're going to have questions, and it's good to do investigations. Even Paul Krugman says, yeah, you should look into it. You should look into it. Now, they did look into it. The AP looked into it. And based on the AP report, Krugman says, well, there's nothing there. They looked into it. Nothing there. Well, that's not true, because there are things that are there, right? Now, Krugman, being the ultimate arbiter of wrongdoing, as I said, looked at this and said, nope, no impropriety here. Please, move along, AP. Move along. He writes, nobody seems to be willing to accept the answers to those questions, which are very clearly no conflict of interest. Well, I gave a little bit of an example, which I said, I'm going to stress that that's not to say that this kind of thing happens in all circumstances, in all cases. But it does happen. Certain donors have been granted access. And that's what this is about. This is about access, not quid pro quo, which they didn't find any. Because there's none there, right? And if you're looking simply for quid pro quo, you're not going to find any. Now, quid pro quo is very, very narrow, right? And it's very, very difficult to be proven. So you're looking for something that's very, very, very specific. Whereas the problem with the Clinton Foundation is access. Donors to the foundation getting access to certain people to call in certain favors. That is the problem here. That's not necessarily quid pro quo. That's just getting access. Something that you and I and most regular people don't have. Okay. Anyway. So Krugman looks at this and says there's no corruption. There's nothing here. And the problem is that this is the establishment mindset that we talk about all the time, right? Our politicians take millions of dollars in legal bribes from corporations. And as the late Antonin Scalia had proclaimed in Citizens United, which is pretty ironic, that those donations, which are used by by corporations to get access to politicians and to influence them, well, that doesn't even give the appearance of corruption. So naturally, if you believe that it doesn't give the appearance of corruption, well, people giving to the Clinton Foundation and then trying to ask for meetings, going through the foundation to get access to Hillary Clinton, well, that must be okay too, because it's not quid pro quo. So look, him saying this and being in that bubble, you kind of understand why he comes to this conclusion, right? See, he's part of the establishment, and this is how the establishment functions. Now, to the ironic part, Hillary Clinton kind of agrees with Antonin Scalia now. At least when it comes to her. You can see she gets millions of dollars from corporations and wealthy donors and people like Goldman Sachs when she gives where she had given speeches for $225,000 a speech. Right? Now she says, and she comes out and says, well, that doesn't influence me. But wait a minute, that's the central argument against Citizens United, which you said you are against. That's the central premise. That, hey, if you allow corporations and wealthy donors to give unlimited money to politicians, that's going to unduly influence them. That's why we need to get rid of Citizens United. Except in the fact that Hillary Clinton, she does not get affected, influenced by money at all. So don't have to worry about that at all. She doesn't get influenced, but everyone else does. Then you also have to remember that Citizens United was started because of Hillary Clinton. The reason the whole case went to the Supreme Court, that move was because of a movie that was about her, that was going to be made. That's the whole reason Citizens United even went to the Supreme Court. The irony here, so much. There is so much. Okay, so much. Now, as I said, she actually agrees with Scalia on this one. It's insane. It's insane. And Krugman and a lot of the other pro-Clinton pundits, well, they tend to throw that to the wayside and ignore that. The so-called liberals, right? Like Krugman. Now, look, as I said before, Krugman, he's got a right to protect his candidate, right? Look, it's an opinion, right? It's an opinion. However, what he says next about journalism is something that I have the big issue with here. Now, he writes, I would urge journalists to ask whether they are reporting facts or simply engaging in innuendo, and urge the public to read with a critical eye. If reports about a candidate talk about how something raises questions, creates shadows, or anything similar, be aware that these are all too often weasel words used to create the impression of wrongdoing out of thin air. So, asking questions, raising questions, is a weasel word. Look, part of that sounds reasonable. Yes, you must urge the public to read with a critical eye. Yeah, of course. Of course. Don't just listen to whatever somebody says, whether it be on YouTube, for example, or in the New York Times or whatever, and buy it 100%. No, do your own research. Right? And that's something that I urge you guys to do. You know, if I get it wrong, call me out. Maybe I missed something. Maybe Paul Krugman missed something. Maybe he missed a whole hell of a lot. I don't know. But anyway, here's the thing that bothers me, right? If you have the audacity to question Hillary Clinton, which is what Paul Krugman is saying, if you've got the audacity to question Hillary Clinton, then you're not actually doing real journalism. You're talking about innuendo. That's what you're doing. You're not actually talking about the facts by raising questions about access into our political system by simply being a donor. And all you're doing is this, you're just creating the impression of wrongdoing out of thin air without any evidence. This is doing nothing but discrediting journalism. Now, it's not, as I said, it's not just that paragraph that bothers me about this, right? Now, after he wrote this, he had the audacity to come out and say that defending Hillary Clinton is bravery. He tweeted out the article with this, quote, "True fact, I was reluctant to write today's column because I knew journos would hate it. But it felt like a moral duty. A moral duty." Not only that, but Nate Silver even suggested that Krugman's column was being suppressed by the New York Times because they didn't promote it on Twitter. Oh, now, of course, later on, the New York Times tweets out the article. Look, that's not suppression, okay? This has gotten insane. They're alleging suppression. You know what it really was? Fucking tweet scheduling. We do that shit all the time. No, suppression. They're trying to shut down this defense of Hillary Clinton. This brave defense. Why is it considered brave to defend Hillary Clinton against questions anyway? Look, we know that there's a lot of things that Hillary Clinton gets wrongly attacked for. I know, right? Benghazi. The whole Clinton body count, how she gets people murdered. Come on, man. Really? Really? Those are the not legitimate issues that she gets attacked on. And it mostly comes from the right wing, right? who actually agree with her on some of her policies or some of her previous policies, which were free trade, which were allowing corporations to get away with certain tax breaks. Okay. But look, there are legitimate issues with her and her campaign. Issues that journalists talk about. And pointing out those issues is what we're supposed to do. However, the pro-Clinton press, including CNN, the New York Times, the Huffington Post, and certain people like Paul Krugman, seem to have a bit of a problem with that. And essentially what they're calling for is the delegitimization of anybody who is criticizing Hillary Clinton on legitimate issues. And basically, they're saying, hey, stop picking on Hillary. Stop criticizing Hillary on things where she actually deserves criticism and scrutiny. That's not journalism, dude. That's protecting a candidate. In fact, Len Greenwald of The Intercept had a great article on this that points out, quote, it should be the opposite of surprising or revealing that pundits loyally devoted to a particular candidate dislike all reporting that reflects negatively on that candidate. There is probably no more diehard Clinton loyalist in the U.S. media than Paul Krugman. No kidding. He further writes, and now that he's assigned himself as the role as arbiter of proper journalism, and along with virtually all other Clinton-supporting pundits and journalists, has oh so surprisingly ruled that all journalism that reflects poorly on Hillary Clinton is unsubstantiated, biased, and deceitful. Finally, he writes, their self-assigned role is to defend her from all criticisms. They view themselves as more as campaign operatives than journalists. Their principal overriding goal is to ensure that Clinton wins the election. Those paragraphs right there have enough snark in them that I just love it. Okay, I just love the level of sarcasm in there and snark. So now he says that, look, they're campaign operatives. They're basically promoting Hillary Clinton despite the negatives about her. And there are plenty. There are also positives about her and her policy, right? But there are a lot of negatives, and those need to be pointed out. That's what we do in the show. Now, certain journalists, right, go, no. Can't do that. And I actually have an example here. Now, this is Bob Cesca of the Daily Banner, who tweeted this out. Quote, knowing the stakes of a Trump victory, any attack on Hillary must be regarded as tacit praise for Trump. And there it is, right? Corporate media hacks like Bob Cesca and Paul Krugman basically throwing out what journalism is supposed to be, which is asking tough but legitimate questions of people in power, challenging the people in power, right? They throw that out the window in favor of only doing positive coverage of their candidate of choice to make sure that they win the White House, and delegitimizing others who do have valid questions and criticism of a candidate or any candidate, but especially this one, who is deeply flawed. They're out there saying, no, don't do journalism anymore. Shut your mouth. Do you want Trump? This is how you get Trump. Come on, man. Really? And they continue by saying, don't question Hillary at all, right? Let's ignore the millions of dollars she's taking from corporations and the wealthy. The speeches from Goldman Sachs, the conflicts of interest. Let's ignore all of that. Because if you don't, Trump, that's what you're going to get. Ignore every single flaw about our candidate. Ignore it. That's not journalism. That's not journalism at all. And look at how they're treating Hillary Clinton. Oh, don't hurt our poor defenseless little candidate. Don't do it. Don't point out these things. You're going to hurt Hillary. You don't want to hurt Hillary, do you? She can't defend herself. Of course she can. It actually does her more of a disservice. But look, here's the thing, right? Journalism is about facts. And facts, sometimes, well, they're stubborn, right? As Kyle Kalinske likes to say from Secular Talk, facts are stubborn things. They don't go away, right? And sometimes they're definitely not in your favor. And sometimes they are. But facts are facts, whether they're in your favor or not, right? Now, let's talk about the facts about Donald Trump, right? I mentioned him earlier. Now, I've reported how much of a loser Donald Trump is on a lot of issues. I've also reported how on trade, that's a winning issue, right? Now, I've also pointed out how he's been a terrible businessman, he's been a loser, how a lot of his positions, like the wall and the deportation force, are terrible and unworkable, right? Now, you're reporting that stuff, and the corporate media, they love it. They eat it up. Now, at first, they didn't. At first, they were wary about attacking Trump. They really wouldn't do it because he was a novelty, right? Now that he's the Republican nominee, now the media decided to take him seriously. And now it's attack after attack after attack, which is good because there's a lot to actually attack him on. And that's actually getting at the facts, right? But when it comes to Hillary Clinton, according to these same outlets that are, attacking Trump daily, and rightfully so, on his terrible record, well, you attack Hillary Clinton on her also terrible record, well, suddenly you're no longer a journalist. Suddenly you're no longer someone to be listened to or respected at all. That's the problem, right? Journalism is about holding people in power accountable for what they do and what they say. That's what journalism is supposed to be. Anything else is PR. And that seems to be all that Krugman is interested in doing.